It's Mark coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. So I'm working on something right now, and I decided I'd make a video because this is kind of interesting stuff. You've heard me talk about biochar. Here in the Midwest, they call it biochar. Down south, they call it biochar. And up in New England, they call it biochar. So you can call it what you want, but basically what it is charcoal that we make in an oxygen-deprived environment. So this is my what's called retort. It's a retort. And then this is the inner retort right here, or the inner barrel. And I actually burned this a couple of days ago. Sorry for the wind. It wasn't winding when I started. I burned it a couple days ago and it's just been sitting here. And I got a break in the action, so I thought I would pull it out and see how it looked. Let me get out of the wind. Or at least get my camera out of the wind. And I pulled it out and it worked out really well. This is really nice stuff. I could give you a long litany of reasons why biochar is probably a good place to start, actually, in your homesteading career, because fertile soils are what you want to live around. It's what your plants want to live around. It's what your animals want to live around. Fertile soils lead to healthy animals. Healthy animals lead to fertile soils. And this is a good jump start on it. So if you make biochar and you crush it up and just put it in compost and then spread the compost, you're going to get a better bang out of that compost on your produce area, your lawn, your flower gardens. Maybe you have a little spot where you go and sit and put your feet in the dirt so you can ground yourself. This is a good starting point, because a lot of homesteads are maybe not on fertile soil. And it makes a lot of sense to buy a homestead that's not on fertile soil, because then there's not a lot of competition for it. You can change that. You can change non-fertile soils into fertile soils. I've done it a lot here. Even though this is a regular farm, and the people who settled this place did it because of the fertile soils here. They didn't take care of it, and not necessarily the people that settled it. It was the people that worked it after that were of the mindset that you take hay off, and then when it starts getting sparse, put some fertilizer on it, some petrochemical fertilizer. And when you do that, you get a kick out of it, maybe for a year, maybe two, but after that, you have to even put more on. Because petrochemical fertilizers are kind of toxic to the life that lives in the soil, that creates the system that feeds the plants, that gives you thicker hay and things like that. So if we go this route and we crush this up, we inoculate it with compost, and then we spread that, this will protect the microbiological life that's in the compost, that is needed in the soils that get depleted when it's not a good place for them to live. So if the sun beats on it and it dries out too fast, they split. They go someplace else where it's nicer. So this is the Palm Springs approach. You know, you take a desert and then you get water to it, and then you start getting the soil fertile and all that, and then it's a good place to go. All right, so the point I'd like to make right here is I'm going to show you what I got from this burn. This barrel was full of wood, just pieces of wood, and I didn't even fill it that, I wasn't too careful about it. I just filled it and just turned it over and threw it in and lit it off. But the wood that I'm using is just this junk wood. I mean, this is soft wood, some mixed hardwood in there, but it's from a pallet mill, and this is the stuff that they don't really want. And I get this stuff very inexpensive. I forget what I paid for this, but it's really inexpensive. And, you know, you can't even let it sit very long because it'll just go to pot. I got this last summer, and we've been burning off of it all winter long, and I want to turn it all into biochar before I have to start mowing up here. I want it gone. All right, I got a project that I'm doing right in this area, and I need this stuff out of the way. This is other stuff that I make biochar out of. A lot of it, the big pieces, I'll burn in the wood stove in the house for fuel, and the small pieces will turn into biochar. But today, I'm going to turn this stuff into biochar. All right, now this is, who knows when this is from? Who knows? They're pretty dried out, and the reason that pile is there is because they were specially selected by some of my staff to turn into biochar, and that would be what's called bone char. And my staff members that do that have 4 legs and white fur, and they select these bones, and they bring them up by the back door of the house. And so I just went around and I picked up a whole bunch of them. Look at, I'll show you this. Now that's not all from the backyard. Some of that is from the chicken area. So let's take a look at this. We'll weave this whole thing together for you. This is from this year. That right there could be Endeavor. It could very well be Endeavor. My beloved bull. I bet it is. I bet it is him. And we processed him. We took off what we want. He's in the freezer. And that would be the neck bones going up to the head. And this is the rib bones in the front, right? So, and that right there is a pelvis. And this on the other side is the identical part of that that's cut down the middle. I'm not really sure where the head is. I don't know. That may have walked off. We'll see, though. I might find it. Now, making char out of bones is a good thing, for sure. These bones otherwise would go in the compost pile, which is a good thing. But my pile right now is it's not making heat. It's not hot because it's February. Today's February 25th or 26th. And normally it's like no man's land here. And right now it's like 45 degrees. This is kind of different. Tomorrow it's supposed to be close to 60. So that's why I'm making biochar, is because I can. You know, some days when it's cold, this is the last place that you want to be, is making biochar. And usually there's a lot of snow everywhere, so you won't be doing that. But these bones went in with the chickens. They picked them clean. Instead of putting them in the compost pile, that pile, I would like to spread that as soon as possible when spring gets here. If I have these bones in it, it would take a while before they would break down. I'm going to start a new pile with a lot of hot manure in it, and that would be a better candidate for bones to go into. So these ones are dry enough that I can put them in this barrel. I'm going to have to cut them up a little bit to fit them in and char them. And they have characteristics quite different than the characteristics of wood. You know, they're a lot denser. I don't know everything there is to know about it, but it's highly prized stuff. You know, you pay a lot for bone char. You pay a lot for biochar too. Biochar can be applied many different ways. You could just take it, crush it up. Like this is crushable right here. You could crush it up and you could take it out and spread it just the way it is. You can inoculate it. I mean, you can make a solution of compost and water and let it sit in the sun for a while and really get stinky and put that on here. And that would really, you know, it would fill this up with those microorganisms and spread that. Another really cool way to do it is to crush this up and then feed it to your chickens. What that does is it runs it through their system, and their system inoculates it with their microbiology. And they have totally different things in them than cows have in them. So my compost pile is made up primarily of cow manure. And so that, that's going to have a bacterial profile way different than what a chicken manure is, and a pig manure. So if you're looking at infertile soils, I'll give you an example of infertile soil. This is a really cool subject because you can make unbelievable gains with it. Where these pigs are right now, there's a group of pigs there. There is none in the middle, and there's none on the left. In these areas, you see it's kind of a hump, and it was very infertile when we moved here. And so I thought we were going to be produce farmers for a little while, so I fenced it in and wound up finding that, hey, you can just turn pigs in there. I know I'm in the wind. You can just turn pigs in there, and they'll eat the produce that mankind doesn't want or doesn't want to pick. And so we started doing that, and then I started seeing like, hey, they're eating a lot of stuff. And so we got away from the idea of being produce farmers because it's just too much work in it, I'm gonna sit down for a minute. I got a good place out of the wind, I think I do. And so that's where we grow pigs. Now, what I'll do is I'll take a bucket of biochar every so often, and I will just put it out there for the pigs. And you'll think, now, why would pigs eat charcoal? Well, I don't know why they eat it, but they do. You put it out there and crunch, crunch, crunch. In a little while, it is gone. And then it goes through their system. They inoculate it with their microbiome, and it's interned into the soils out there in the biochar, all crunched up, run through their system. And you can do that as much as you want. And when those pigs come off of there, like I've had them in there for a lot of years now, and that ground is extremely fertile. And I do other things too. I'll go through and I'll plow it up. I'll just turn it completely over. I'll go as deep as I can with my equipment. And so I'm driving that fertility lower and lower. And I've heard people say, real smart guys in the farming business say, well, you can't do that. But we are doing it. It is working. So the pigs do a lot of digging out there, and they do a lot of manuring, and they do a lot of biochar eating. So biochar, you can use it many, many, many different ways. You can take it in the house, crush it up, and take it yourself. Not a bad idea. There's a lot of things that come with it that I don't want to say here because I don't know for sure. But I do know if I take biochar, a chunk of biochar, and I submerge it, get it completely waterlogged, you can let it sit right in the sun for a long time and break it open, and it's still got water in it. It stays waterlogged. So one of the things that will kill off your microbiome in the soil is drought. When it gets so dry in the soil that they're in a totally dry situation, it'll kill them off. Either that or they'll move out. They'll go deeper or wherever they got to go. Not exactly sure how that works. So anyway, I've been making it for a few 10 years, more than that. And I do sell some. If you raise chickens in an area like pastured poultry, especially in an area where you have coccidiosis prevalent. Coccidia is a protozoa that exists, and sometimes, some places, for some reasons, it gets out of balance terribly, and it will kill chickens off. And you'll know that's on the horizon when you start seeing a little bit of orange, even yellow in their manure. You start seeing yellow, next couple days you're going to see orange, then warning, warning, you're going to see red, and that's blood is what it is. So the coccidia protozoa is what it is. Instead of eating bacteria, what it's designed to do, it starts eating the chicken because there's not enough bacteria in the chicken's gut. So when we feed our chickens biochar that is ground and then inoculated with a compost tea that's just full of bacteria, then the protozoa, they just eat the bacteria and they leave the chicken alone, and the chickens stay healthy. We usually process them at 8 to 10 weeks, so we don't have a problem. We used to have a horrible problem here until we discovered this biochar, and I discovered that purely by accident. I'd have to tell you that story sometime. But today, mostly I'm going to be making bone char. Now, when you make bone char in a retort like this, you have to put some wood in too, unless the bones are really dry. And a lot of these bones are not, because Old Endeavor, he was walking around end of December, and now he's going to be biochar and spread all over the farm, so he'll still be here. That's kind of neat in a way. Maybe when we pass on, we could be biocharred and interned into the farm. Wouldn't that be fun? Okay, so I'm going to load this and get it burning, and then I will come back on and show you what it looks like when it's burning. And then tomorrow, when we pull it apart, I'll show you what these bones look like charred. Now, there is a possibility that they will partially char, and that's okay. We can knock off the part that is fully charred, and then the parts that didn't fully char, we can run them through again, and they'll be a lot drier then, and they will most likely finish up. But let's say it went through twice and we had to put them in again. That's okay, because part of this process is the energy that's in these bones in wood. We're turning it loose, and then it burns. So let me get it burning, and then I'll expound on that. Remember,